The red sun hung low over the horizon, casting long shadows across the rocky plain. Dust kicked up in slow spirals as the wind moved through the canyon. Dane Rourke stood on the edge of his outpost, a lone figure against the dying light, watching the sky. He was a man out of time. Once a soldier, now just a prospector scraping a living from the barren rock of this forgotten world. The outpost wasn't much, just a few rusted domes, a power core that groaned with every startup, and an AI named Juno who talked too much, but it was home. Dane had come here to forget, to be alone. That night, everything changed. A streak of fire tore through the sky. Not a meteor, too controlled, too fast. It crashed somewhere beyond the ridge, sending up a plume of dust and smoke. Dane watched it for a moment, then grabbed his coat and rifle. "Juno," he said into the comms, "mark the impact site." "Already done," the AI replied in her calm voice. "Signal interference detected. Unknown origin." Dane didn't like unknowns, but curiosity won over caution. He made his way down the slope, boots crunching on loose gravel. The crash site was worse than he expected. Smoke rose from a deep crater, where a small escape pod had buried itself halfway into the ground. It was alien, not human design. Sleek, curved metal, covered in strange symbols glowing faintly blue. Dane circled the wreck, scanning for life signs. His scanner beeped. One survivor. Inside, the pod hissed as its hatch cracked open. Smoke poured out, and Dane stepped back, weapon ready. Then she appeared. She was tall, over 6 feet, with smooth feline features, golden skin, and eyes like burning embers. Her body was lean and strong but covered in wounds. Blood, not red but deep violet, stained her side. She looked at him. Her voice was weak, broken, human. "I ask for sanctuary. In return, I offer alliance, and if you accept, my body." Dane blinked. He thought he'd heard wrong. "What?" Her breath came in short gasps. "My people are dying. My children, hidden. I need your help. I will give what is needed." Dane lowered his rifle slowly. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. "You don't even know me," he said, stepping closer. "I know. Humans fight. Humans survive." She coughed. "You are last hope." He studied her face. There was pain there, yes, but also pride and fear. Dane had seen that look before, on soldiers who knew they were about to die. He holstered his rifle. "All right," he said. "Let's get you inside." He helped her out of the pod, supporting her weight as they walked back toward the outpost. She was heavier than she looked, muscles coiled under soft skin. She winced with every step but never cried out. Once inside, Juno activated the med bay. Medical assistance initializing. Critical injuries detected. "You're going to live," Dane told her, helping her onto the table. "But I want answers." She nodded weakly. "My name is Vela, last matriarch of the Cathari. Never heard of you. We were many. Now few." Dane frowned. "What happened?" "War," she whispered. "Xeric Dominion. They destroy us, hunt us, kill our young." "Why are you here?" "Because you are strong, you do not run, you protect." Dane turned away, uneasy. "I'm not a hero." "No," she said, her voice growing softer. "You are a man who still fights when others stop." Silence filled the room. Then she reached out, placing a clawed hand on his arm. "If you help me, I will. Give you all I have. My knowledge, my strength, even my body. Just promise and keep my children safe." Dane stared at her. He had no idea what he was getting into. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just a refugee at his door. This was the start of something big. The med bay hummed softly as healing bots moved across Vela's wounds. Dane stood nearby, arms crossed, watching her sleep. She had passed, out soon after he brought her in. The AI, Juno, kept updating him on her condition. Internal bleeding stopped. Cellular regeneration in progress. Full recovery expected within 48 hours. Dine nodded, though no one could see it. He had seen a lot. During the war, strange weapons, stranger enemies, but this was different. This wasn't just another alien species. This was someone who had lost everything. And now she was here, asking for help. He turned to the escape pod's console. It was still active, glowing with soft blue symbols. He tapped a few keys, but couldn't read the language. Juno, can you translate? Working. Partial translation possible. Warning, data files heavily encrypted. A few seconds later, parts of the screen lit up in broken English. Cathari Queen Vela. Last matriarch clutch status. Unknown location. Offline Xerac. Threat level. Critical alliance. Requested. Human support. Dine frowned. So it wasn't just about her survival. Her eggs, her children, were missing. He stepped back and rubbed his face. This was getting complicated. By morning, Vela was awake. She sat upright on the med table, moving slowly but steadily. Her wounds were still fresh but already healing fast. She looked at Dane with sharp golden eyes. You read the logs, she said, not as a question. Some of them, Dane replied. You said your children are hidden. Where? Vela lowered her gaze. I do not know. I was forced to flee before I could retrieve them. Dane sighed. That's not good. They are safe, she said firmly. I made sure of that. But if the Xerac find them first? She didn't need to finish. Dane understood. Who are these Xerac anyway? He asked. Vela's voice grew colder. They are hunters, insectoid warriors. They do not build. They only conquer. They destroy what they cannot control. Dine thought of old Earth wars, of burning cities and fleeing civilians. He knew that kind of enemy well. They're coming for you, he said. Vela nodded. Yes, I left a trace. They will follow. Dine looked out the window. The red sun was rising again, painting the sky in fire. So what now? Vela stood up slowly. She was tall, powerful, even weakened. She radiated strength. Now we prepare, she said. If they come, we fight. Dane gave her a long look. You think, I can stop an alien army? You don't have to stop them, she said. Just slow them down, long enough for me to find my children. Dane exhaled. All right, but I'm not doing this because of some deal you offered me last night. Vela tilted her head slightly. Then why? Because I've seen what happens when nobody stands up, he said. And I'm tired of running. Vela studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. Good. Over the next few days, things changed. Dane wasn't alone anymore. Vela helped fix the outpost's power grid, using tech he didn't understand. She taught him Cathari combat moves, fast, silent, deadly. In return, Dane showed her how humans survived in harsh places, how to scavenge, how to hide, how to wait. They worked together like they'd been doing it for years. At night, they talked. About war, about loss, about hope. One evening, sitting near the fire, Vela asked, Why did you leave your people? Dine stared into the flames. I didn't leave them, he said quietly. They left me. Vela didn't press further. Instead, she reached out and placed a clawed hand on his arm. You are not alone anymore. Dine didn't respond right away, but something inside him shifted. Then the sensors beeped. Juno's voice cut through the quiet. Incoming heat signatures detected. Multiple aerial units. Fast-moving. Hostile intent probable. Dane stood up quickly. How far? 5 minutes. Vela's ears twitched. Her eyes burned with fire. They found me, she whispered. Dane grabbed his rifle. Then let's show them what we've got. Outside, the wind began to howl. The hunt had begun. The wind screamed across the rocky plain as Dane and Vela moved fast. The outpost was small, built for one man and a tired AI. Now it had to hold against an alien strike force. Dane grabbed tools and started setting up defenses. Old mines from his prospecting days were buried around the perimeter. Motion sensors were placed on the ridges. Turrets, jury-rigged from mining drones, were reprogrammed to fire warning shots, or real ones if needed. Vela worked beside him, her movements quick and precise. She carried no human weapons, but she didn't need them. Her body was a weapon, claws sharp, muscles tight, eyes always watching. "Juno," Dane called out. "How many are we dealing with?" Sensors detect 6 aerial units approaching from the east. Estimated time to contact, 3 minutes. Dane cursed under his breath. That wasn't enough time to run. They had to fight here. Vela looked at him calmly. "You have a plan?" Dane nodded. "We don't let them land." He ran inside and came back with a pack full of old grenades and a shoulder-mounted plasma launcher. He handed Vela a rifle he had modified himself. Stronger kick, better aim. She took it without hesitation and checked the load. "You trust me with this?" she asked. "You've trusted me with your life," Dane replied. "Seems fair." Outside, the sky darkened. 6 ships, black and sleek like hunting birds, cut through the clouds. They hovered low, scanning the ground. Then one by one they began to descend. Zirac dropships. Each one carried at least 4 soldiers, armored insectoid warriors who moved with cold precision. Their exoskeletons clicked in the wind as they stepped onto the dust. They weren't here to talk. One raised a weapon and fired. A blast of green energy struck the ground near the outpost, sending rock flying. Dane ducked behind cover and shouted into his comm, "Juno, activate traps." Inside the outpost, Juno responded instantly, activating perimeter defense. The first trap went off seconds later. A hidden mine exploded beneath. 2 Zirac soldiers sending them flying. Screams filled the air, sharp, high-pitched, not quite human. Chaos broke out. Dane and Vela opened fire. Dane's rifle cracked with every shot, hitting armor and wings. Vela moved like lightning, leaping from cover to attack. She landed behind a soldier and slashed its neck open with her claws. Purple blood sprayed into the sand. More Zirac poured from the ships. Dane saw one crawling toward the outpost. He aimed and fired. Missed. Second shot hit center mass. The creature fell. Vela was already on another, twisting its arm and breaking it with a sickening crunch before driving her knee into its chest. Dane shouted, "We can't hold them all out here." Vela agreed. "Then we bring the fight to them." She pointed to one of the dropships still hovering above. "That is their command unit. If we destroy it, the others will hesitate." Dane grinned. "Now you're speaking my language." They moved fast, dodging fire, using rocks and shadows to stay hidden. Vela took point, moving silently while Dane covered her. When they reached the edge of the battlefield, Dane pulled a grenade from his belt. "I only have 2 of these," he said. "Make them count." Vela nodded. Dane threw the first. It landed near the ship's landing strut and exploded, shaking the hull. One more. He waited. Aimed. Threw. The second grenade flew true. It hit the side of the ship right where the fuel line was exposed. Fire bloomed. Metal shrieked. The dropship tilted sideways and crashed into the ground, sending shockwaves through the canyon. The remaining Zirac paused. Their command link was gone. Without orders, they hesitated. That was all Dane and Vela needed. They pushed forward, striking hard and fast. One by one, the enemy fell. By the time the dust settled, only silence remained. The last Zirac soldier twitched on the ground, then stopped moving. Dane stood in the middle of the battlefield, breathing hard. Vela walked up beside him. "They, won't come again so soon," she said. "No," Dane agreed. "But they'll send more." Vela looked at the wreckage. "They know I'm alive now. They won't stop until I'm dead." Dane wiped sweat from his brow. "Then we find your children. Fast." Vela met his gaze. "And how do we do that?" Dane smiled slightly. "You said you left them somewhere safe. I say we start there." Vela nodded slowly. "There is a place, a hidden valley beyond the southern cliffs. I used Cathari cloaking tech to hide the nest. Then that's our next stop. Vela studied him for a moment. You really are different, she said. Dane shrugged, just tired of losing. Behind them, the sun dipped lower in the sky. Night was coming, and with it, a long journey. But for the first time in years, Dane wasn't walking alone. The sun had set by the time Diane and Vela finished burying the last Xeric body. The wind howled over the canyon, carrying with it the scent of scorched metal and alien blood. Inside the outpost, Juno ran a systems check. Structural. Integrity, intact. Power reserve stable. No further threats detected. Diane sat at the table cleaning his rifle. His hands were tired but steady. Vela stood near the window watching the dark sky. They will come again, she said quietly. I know, Dan replied. But we'll be ready. She turned to him. You risk much for someone you don't even know. He looked up. I know enough. Vela walked closer. What do you mean? Diane set the rifle aside. I've seen what happens when nobody fights. I've watched good people die because they waited too long to stand up. He met her gaze. You're not asking me to fight for you. You're just asking me to fight beside you. Vela's golden eyes softened. That is more than most would give. Dane gave a small smile. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of being alone. Outside, the wind picked up. Inside, something else was building. Not war. Not fear. Something warmer. By morning, they were on the move. They took Dane's old rover, an armored transport built for mining in harsh terrain. It groaned under the weight of extra fuel and supplies, but it held. The southern cliffs loomed ahead, jagged and red like broken teeth. Beyond them was the hidden valley where Vela had left her clutch. If they were lucky, the eggs were still there and alive. As they drove, Dane asked, How long have you been running? Vela looked out the window. Since my mate died. Dane didn't press. He knew that kind of pain too. After a long silence, she added, We fought together until the end. When our home fell, he sent me away. Said I was the last hope for our children. Diane kept driving. Sounds like he was right. Vela nodded slowly. He was a great warrior, a better father. Her voice dropped. I failed them. Diane glanced at her. You didn't. I should have protected them. You are protecting them, Diane said firmly. That's why we're here. Vela looked at him. For the first time in days, there was something like hope in her eyes. The climb into the cliffs was rough. The rover groaned as it climbed narrow paths carved by time and weather. At one point, a rock slide forced them to stop and walk the rest of the way. They moved carefully through the rocks, weapons ready. The area was quiet, too quiet. Then Vela stopped. This is it, she whispered. Before them was a small cave, half hidden behind a curtain of vines and stone. She stepped forward and pressed a hand to a flat surface on the wall. A soft blue light flickered. Then the air shimmered, and a hidden door opened. Inside was darkness and warmth. Vela stepped inside, first moving fast. Dane followed, rifle raised. The room beyond was unlike anything Dane had ever seen. It was round, lined with glowing panels and strange pods hanging from the ceiling. In the center, 5 large eggs rested in a nest made of woven fiber and metal. Still, warm, still breathing. Vela rushed to them, touching each one gently. Her eyes shone with something between joy and relief. They are alive, she whispered. Dane lowered his rifle. That's good, right? Vela nodded, but her face was serious. They need to hatch soon. If they stay in stasis too long, they may never wake. Dane frowned. Can you speed up the process? Vela studied the control panel. There is a way, but it's risky. How risky? If I fail. She looked at him. They die. Dane swallowed hard. Then let's make sure you don't fail. They worked together. Vela adjusted settings, inputting codes and commands. Diane helped where he could, handing tools or keeping watch. Juno connected to the system remotely, translating alien symbols into basic English. Warning, premature activation may cause developmental failure. Vela ignored it. I won't lose them, she muttered. Not now. She pressed the final command. The room hummed. The pods began to glow. One by one, the eggs started to shift. Tiny cracks formed on their surfaces. Then, a sound. Soft, wet, and full of life. One egg split open. A small Cathari child tumbled out, covered in fluid and gasping for breath. Vela caught it gently in her arms. Tears filled her eyes. Dane watched in silence. This wasn't just survival. This was hope, one by one. The others followed. 5 tiny lives blinking into a world that had tried to erase them. Vela looked at Diane. Thank you, she said softly. Diane gave a tired smile. Don't thank me yet. We still have to keep them safe. Vela nodded. Yes. And we will. Outside the wind howled again, but inside something new had begun. Life. Family. A future. The 5 Cathari young were small, no bigger than a human child's arm, but full of life. They moved quickly, curious and playful, exploring their new world with wide golden eyes. Vela stayed close to them, guiding their first steps, teaching them how to move, how to listen, how to survive. Dane watched from a distance, leaning on the doorframe of the outpost. He hadn't expected this. He came here to be alone, to forget. But now he had a house full of aliens, an AI that never stopped talking, and a war that was far from over. Still, he smiled. It felt good. But peace didn't last long. Juno's voice crackled through the comms. Incoming heat signatures detected. Multiple aerial units, fast-moving. Dane straightened up. How many? At least 12 ships. Estimated arrival, 10 minutes. Vela's ears twitched. She looked at the younglings and pulled them close. They've found us, she whispered. Dane cursed under his breath. They don't give up easy. Vela turned to him, her face hard like stone. We must protect the children, no matter what. Dane nodded. Agreed. But we're not running. We fight. Vela gave a sharp nod. Then we make them regret coming. They moved fast. Vela carried 2 of the younglings into the deepest part of the outpost. Dane sealed the hatch behind them, locking it with Juno's help. Juno, if anything happens to me, keep them safe, he said. Understood, the AI replied. Defensive protocols engaged. Outside, the sky darkened. 12 dropships flew in low, casting shadows over the canyon. The Xerac weren't just sending soldiers this time. They brought tanks. Heavy insectoid walkers rolled out of the ships, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. This wasn't a raid. It was an invasion. Dane and Vela took position near the ridge. From above, they had a clear view of the enemy force moving toward the outpost. Diane counted at least 50 soldiers. Maybe more. This is insane, Diane muttered. Vela crouched beside him, claws flexing. They want me dead and my children gone. Dane looked at her. Then let's show them how hard humans fight when protecting what's theirs. He handed her a modified rifle. You ready? She grinned. Born ready. The first shot rang out. Dane fired first, hitting a Xerac officer in the head. The alien fell before he could shout a command. Chaos followed. Vela leapt down from the ridge like a shadow, landing among the enemy. Her claws sliced through armor and flesh. She moved fast, silent, deadly. Dane stayed on the high ground, picking off targets one by one. He used old mining charges, rigged explosives, and drone scouts to guide his fire. Below, the battle became a storm. Xerac soldiers tried to push forward, but Vela met them head-on. She fought like a fury, protecting every inch of ground between the enemy and her young. One walker opened fire, its plasma cannon tearing through rock and metal. Dane saw the danger. Juno, activate rover. Inside the outpost, the AI responded instantly. Rover systems online. The old mining vehicle roared to life, loaded with explosives. Dane jumped inside and drove it down the slope. The Zirac barely saw him coming. He slammed into the side of the walker and hit the detonator. Fire exploded across the battlefield. Metal screamed. Smoke rose. When the dust cleared, Dane was already back in position, reloading. But the Zirac kept coming. They dropped more troops, deployed drones, fired from all sides. Dane and Vela were pushed back, cornered. For the first time, Dane thought they might not make it. Then Vela shouted, "Now!" A sudden burst of light filled the sky. From behind the ridge, a wave of energy swept across the battlefield. Cathari tech, hidden defense fields, buried long ago. Dozens of Zirac soldiers dropped as invisible shock waves pulsed outward. Vela grinned. "I told you I left something behind." Dane laughed despite himself. "You really think ahead." With the enemy stunned, they struck again. Vela led a final charge, cutting through the remaining forces with fury. Dane covered her, firing until his rifle overheated. By the time the last Zirac fell, the canyon was silent once more. Smoke drifted in the wind, bodies lay scattered, and the outpost still stood. Dane leaned against a rock, breathing hard. "You okay?" Vela asked. He nodded. "Yeah. You?" She looked at the horizon, her golden eyes burning. "We won today," she said. "But the war has only begun." Dane wiped blood from his brow. "Then we'd better get ready." Behind them, the younglings waited, safe, alive, and growing stronger every day. The canyon was silent in the early morning light. Smoke still curled from scorched rock and shattered alien armor. The wind carried the scent of fire and death. Dane stood near the edge of the outpost, looking out over the battlefield. His body ached. His hands were raw. But he was alive. Vela walked up beside him, her golden eyes scanning the sky. "They won't come again so soon," she said. "No," Dane replied. "But they'll be back." She nodded slowly. This was only the beginning. Behind them, Juno's voice came through the comms. Enemy dropships retreating. Scans confirm no. Life signs remaining on the field. Dane exhaled. "Good. That gives us time." "For what?" Vela asked. "To build something better than this," he said, gesturing to the broken outpost and scorched land. "We can't keep fighting off waves forever. We need allies. We need protection. And we need a future for your children." Vela looked at him carefully. "You mean to make this more than just survival?" "I do," Dane said. "Because if we don't, then all we're doing is delaying the end." Vela studied him for a long moment. Then she gave a small smile. "You are not like other humans I have met." Dane smirked. "That's probably a good thing." Over the next few weeks, the outpost changed. What had once been a lonely mining camp became a home. Vela used hidden Cathari tech to reinforce the walls. She activated old energy shields buried beneath the ground, making the area invisible to enemy scans. Dane worked with Juno to set up new defenses, turrets, traps, and drone scouts that patrolled the skies. They trained together, learning each other's strengths. Vela taught Dane how to fight silently, how to move unseen, how to strike fast and disappear before the enemy could react. In return, Dane showed her how humans survived. In harsh places, how to scavenge, how to build, how to hold ground when outnumbered. And most importantly, he showed her how to hope. Word began to spread. Across human space, reports told of an alien attack stopped by a lone human and a Cathari warrior. Some called it myth. Others called it propaganda. But among those who had fought wars, lost homes, and seen too much death, it was something else. It was hope. Soon, others arrived. First, a small group of human refugees, former soldiers, scavengers, and ex-colonists looking for a place to stand. Then came Cathari survivors, those who had escaped the Zirac war machine and gone into hiding. They found Vela through old codes, old signals passed between species in secret. One night, a young Cathari male approached her. "My name is Kale," he said. "My mother died protecting our nest. I heard you lived. I came to serve." Vela placed a hand on his shoulder. "You are welcome here." More followed. Within a month, the outpost had grown into a settlement. Tents rose around the main dome. A training yard was built. Children, both human and Cathari, played together in the red dust. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't safe. But it was something new. A home. One evening, as the sun dipped below the cliffs, Vela sat beside Dane near the fire. He was cleaning his rifle as always. She watched him for a while before speaking. "You didn't have to stay," she said. Dane didn't. "Look up." "I know. You could have left, gone back to your quiet life." He finally looked at her. "That life was never mine. Not really." She tilted her head slightly. "Then what is yours?" Dane thought about it. "I don't know," he admitted. "But whatever it is, I think it's here." Vela studied him. Then she reached out and took his hand. "I once thought I would die alone," she said softly. "That my children would never know their mother's people, that our kind would fade into nothing." Dane squeezed her hand gently. "Not anymore." "No," she whispered. "Not anymore." Above them, the stars blinked into view. Beyond them, danger still waited. The Zirak would return. Other enemies would come. But now, they wouldn't face it alone. They were no longer just two strangers in the dark. They were the start of something bigger. A new alliance. A new family. A new kind. A future. The Red Canyon that once held only silence now echoed with life. What had begun as a lonely outpost grew into a thriving settlement, home to both humans and Cathari. Children ran through the dust, playing games born from two worlds. Soldiers trained together, learning each other's ways. Refugees found shelter. Fighters found purpose, and at the heart of it all stood Dane and Vela. They were no longer just a man and an alien widow. They were leaders, protectors, parents. One morning, Dane stood on the highest ridge, watching the sun rise over the rocky plains. The wind was cool, carrying the scent of metal and firewood. Vela joined him, her golden eyes sharp and full of thought. "They are growing fast," she said. Dane smiled slightly. "Yeah, they learn fast too." Their children, both born and raised here, were already showing signs of who they would become. Half human, half Cathari, they carried strength from both worlds. Some moved like Vela, silent and graceful. Others fought like Dane, bold and fearless. All of them knew what it meant to stand up for others. That was something worth building on. Vela looked out over the valley. "The galaxy still sees us as weak," she said, "as broken pieces of lost people." Dane nodded. "Let them think that." She turned to him. "Why?" "Because when they least expect it," he said, "we'll show them we're not hiding anymore." News arrived that day. A fleet had been spotted beyond the outer systems, Zirak warships gathering near old Cathari space. They hadn't forgotten their defeat in the canyon. They hadn't forgiven it either. This time, they weren't coming with scouts or raiders. They were coming with everything. Dane called a meeting in the main hall, a dome built from scrap, stone, and hope. Humans and Cathari gathered, young and old, fighters and builders alike. He stood at the front looking at the faces of those who trusted him. "We've spent years surviving," he said, "hiding, defending. But we can't keep waiting for the next attack." Vela stepped beside him. "It is time we take the fight to them." A murmur spread through the crowd. Dane raised his voice. "We don't do this for revenge. We do this so our children grow up in a world where they don't have to run, where they can build something better than what we inherited." Vela added, "Together we are not just human, not just Cathari, we are something new." Silence followed. Then, one by one, Hands rose in agreement. Fists clenched. Voices shouted, "Yes, we fight. For our home." The decision was made. They would not wait for the enemy to come again. They would strike first. Preparations began at once. Old ships were repaired. Weapons were upgraded. Scouts were sent ahead. Plans were drawn. Dane and Vela led the charge. They trained hard, fought harder. When the time came, they took off in a fleet of stolen, rebuilt, and repurposed ships, humans flying side by side with Cathari warriors. They struck deep into Xerac space. Hit and run attacks, sabotage, infiltration. The Xerac were confused at first, then afraid. Word spread across the stars. The alliance of man and Cathuri had risen. No longer victims, no longer prey. Now hunters. Back on the canyon world, life continued. The settlement grew into a city. A monument was built at the edge of the cliffs, a statue of a human and a Cathari standing back to back, weapons raised. Children played beneath it. Families lived around it. And every night, fires burned in the windows of homes that once stood empty. Inside one such home, a young boy sat listening to stories. His father told him about a lone prospector who once lived alone in the dust. His mother told him about a queen who lost everything but refused to give up. And together, they told him how those two strangers changed the galaxy, not with weapons, not with war, but with love, with hope, with family, and with the simple belief that even in the darkest corners of space, there was always room for something new, something better, something worth fighting for.